Get hyped, because Boot Wizard has gone to some extreme lengths to be able to get these basically on launch day. Yes, they were announced a month ago now by Adidas. I made a whole video on that, but they were only supposed to start shipping today. Boom. We have a pair in hand, which I've managed to get some playtime in already. So let's get a first impressions review going of the brand new Adidas X Ghosted 0.1. What's up guys, James here from Boot Wizard Boot Reviews, and yes, it is the brand new X Ghosted 0.1, and I think with the exception of YJ Football and of course their big guys like J Mike over at Unisport, we're the first channel to get a review on these out to you. In order to get hold of these, I have had them shipped all the way from Asia in a sample pair, which are the same as the release pair, just so I could get them as quickly as possible for the review. Now, I've had these on feet for a few hours, so I've got a very good feeling of what's going on here. So we're gonna do this review, we're gonna do a playtest review later in the week. So if you wanna check that out, hit the subscribe button and like the video as well. This is the Ghosted 0.1. So this is what replaces the X19 0.1. Now it looks like Adidas are moving to a whole system where they name their boots again, like when we got the Mania and the Accelerator and things like that. So this is now Ghosted. Looks like the new Predator might get a new name next year as well. So the numbering system for years is out of the window, which while it might give some cooler names to the boots, and I get that from a marketing point of view, I really enjoyed the 20 plus, 20.1, 20.2, that system, because it just made my life so easy. So this is the successor to the very popular and very good X19.1, and it seems like Adidas have somewhat listened to the demands of the people as we shout from the rooftops that we want the Adizero back. They've taken some of that, I suppose, influence or advice, applied it to these boots, and have given you what you asked for. The question is, are you willing to live with the downfalls of getting what you asked for? Is the Adizero not quite as perfect as you remember? And by getting this new boot with this synthetic upper, you actually brought problems upon yourself. And I include myself in that statement. But let's jump into the upper and break it down and find out. The most recent boot that's most similar to this new Ghosted 0.1 isn't actually the X19.1. This is going a completely different direction, giving you that synthetic F50 style upper, not that mesh-based upper that you got on the 19.1, even though it does share some design similarities. Of course, you do have a similar tongue construction here, but of course they've cut off that little leverage piece from the claw collar design, which I think is fantastic because it just got in the way and it creased up the front of the boot here. This new material down the front is so much better. It's much softer, it creases up far less, it form fits to your foot better, and you don't get that annoying piece that sits here and just basically ruins the aesthetic of the boot and sometimes gets in the way. They have kept this claw collar style design in the back, and they've kept the same padding elements. So there are elements of X19 here, but it's definitely more F50, and it's definitely more of this. This is the 99 X19, or as it became known, the X99, because that just made more sense. And this was a silicone top coating with these weaves running through, giving some support, and then an internal support cage, a structure that's made up of a synthetic suede material. Fairly basic, very F50, and very similar to what we're getting from this brand new Ghosted 0.1. While you might assume this would give you a thinner, more barefoot touch on the ball, because you can see clean through it in these areas, that synthetic suede support cage actually adds more material than the multiple layers of material that have been pressed together to make this fluoro skin upper. So this, without question, gives you pretty much the most barefoot, most pingy, most raw sensation on the ball that you're going to get from any boot on the market right now. And that means that it takes over from a personal favorite of mine, which is the Nemesis. This was previously, in my opinion, the thinnest upper that gave you the most barefoot touch going. That now belongs to the X Ghosted 0.1. Haven't tried the Ghosted Plus yet. Maybe that's even thinner. As I said previously, that barefoot synthetic touch on the ball definitely means that you're getting F50 Adizero vibes, which is something that as a boot community we've kind of been crying out for. And that's what they've given you, but that's not without its downsides. And that means that the Adizero had downsides. We have to take the nostalgia goggles off for a second and admit that. You can see it when you apply kind of a variety of pressure to the boot in different areas. You can see it kind of creases and it bumps. Because it's synthetic material, it's plastic, it doesn't have a really nice kind of touch or feeling where it just becomes uniform and bends and molds with your foot at every single point. That's not how synthetic materials work. So when you are running with this, if you start to bend fully or anything like that, you're going to get little bumps and creases in the upper. That's something you're just going to have to deal with to get that raw synthetic touch on the ball. If you compare it to something like the Mercurial is far more uniform and it responds in a much different way because it is a knitted material. That doesn't mean that this is bad or I'm saying that this is better. It's just that this is made from a different material which gives you that better barefoot touch if that's what you're looking for, but it does mean that you do get a little bit of a difference because simply they're very, very different materials. The only other upper issue is one that's also shared by the X99, and that's because the upper is very slick. So when this gets a bit wet, there's no kind of additional texture or anything like that. And this could be a problem for some people. I would like a little bit of extra grip or texture to the upper of this boot, especially around this lower area, which is coated. The upper area actually has some of these exposed check pattern support mesh in it, and that's fine, but here, completely smooth. It's not a huge deal breaker, but if you like texture on the boot or on the ball, you're not getting any of that here. It's kind of up to you to decide if that's something you need. There is, of course, a Ghosted Plus model, which is laceless, which you would assume doesn't have as good a lockdown as the 0.1 with the laces. It's pretty much impossible to achieve that, but I'll be interested to try it out. It will be on the channel as soon as I've got a pair, so remember to get subscribed. But in terms of lockdown here, again, you might be a little surprised to learn that this isn't the most locked in boot on the market. As far as a speed boot goes, it's very good and you have no complaints here. But again, if I compare this to what you get from the Mercurial or what you get from the Puma Ultra, its other big speed boot competitor, I'd say that the lockdown here is actually the least good. Is that good English? It's not as good as the other two. Again, don't take that as I'm saying this has bad lockdown. It absolutely does not. It's just that the other two boots being knitted and the way that they apply the lockdown to the boot is just a little bit more uniform and it makes your whole foot feel more locked in, which this doesn't. It's completely fine. I have no problems and I am definitely going to wear this boot a lot, but lockdown, it is not top of the class. Responsiveness, however, and I realize the two kind of usually go hand in hand, this is a super responsive boot. Now the upper is good enough and gives you enough structure so that you get a really nice amount of responsiveness out of the upper, but so much of that responsive feeling comes from this outsole, which we will get into right now. And if you think that I've not exactly been waxing lyrical and going crazy about the performance of the Ghosted 0.1 when it comes to the upper, things about to change. This, whew, whew. Here, Adidas have done something special in my opinion. Now this isn't going to be for everyone, and like the upper, which has a super raw barefoot touch on the ball, the outsole here is built for just the feeling of raw acceleration, raw power on the ball, and just being able to push off and move. It's raw spring back and stiffness and go, and I promise you this isn't gonna be for everyone because there's very little give in this, which does affect the comfort of the boot a little bit. But you know what? If you wanna get going in a straight line and you love a speed boot, this is fantastic. Start with the things that don't cause me to shout and get up out of my chair. So the stud pattern is actually the same as we've got on pretty much every Adidas boot for a very long time. 4 in the back, 2 support studs here, 3 across the middle, and 2 in the toe. It's exactly the same. They haven't changed that up at all. And it works, so fair enough. Why would you? I'm not against that staying, but what they have done is they've moved away from that X19, X18, 17, the long-running Adidas stud shape, which was basically those kind of diamond-shaped studs, they're triangles. They weren't super aggressive. And what they've done is they've just made those studs more aggressive. So you've got bladed studs in here, bladed studs in the heel, and then you have an actual arrow stud here and more chevron style studs. They're like half chevrons that run in here, and they're actually angled. So they're angled to try and give you the best possible grip into the turf. The whole outsole is built on the idea of a running spike, which is something we've heard over and over and over again from multiple brands about how they design their outsoles, because why wouldn't you design your speed boot outsole around a running spike, which is designed purely around getting people from A to B as quickly as possible? However, here, it really feels like they've actually done it. So you get that slight tilt up and the way that the outsole is designed pushes you onto your toes. It really feels like the whole boot is just pushing you into a go position the whole time. Now, I feel like New Balance have done this with some previous Furons, but not to this extent and certainly not as well. And the stud shape all leads into that kind of forward angling, pushed onto your toes, ready to go sensation. So stud shape, not as aggressive as the Mercurial for sure, not as aggressive as all the chevron bladed studs here, and you don't get quite the same traction that you do out of this. But the sole plate itself and the way that it's designed as a package absolutely makes up for that. I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking there's carbon fiber, get to the carbon fiber. I'm getting there. So what we've got in the heel is a fairly standard construction as it goes through, but it's very stiff and very rigid in the heel and the midfoot here. You get very little wiggle room. This is keeping you in one place the whole time. And like I said, that adds to the responsive feeling of the boot, as does this carbon fiber insert. So this is a Carbitex insert, which is the brand that makes the carbon fiber inserts, that runs from about here all the way up to the tip of the boot, which gives this the most springy, most responsive feeling in the forefoot of a boot that I have picked up in maybe forever. It's fantastic. Like, that is unbelievable. I am in love with this carbon fiber insert and the way that that provides you with spring back and responsiveness from the outsole. It's so good. Now, you don't, again, get a whole heap of multi-directional movement out of here, but why would you complain about that? It's about going straight line. I've never complained about it in the Mercurial. I'm not going to complain about it here. But talking about the Mercurial, which I have given all the praise for its outsole and the way that they use this Aerotrax plate to provide you with that graded springback effect, this, compared to this, nothing. Nothing. I love this boot. Don't get me wrong. This is a fantastic, fantastic boot. But if you want a lightweight, responsive outsole that's going to give you great feeling of being on your toes and being able to be aggressive when you're pushing off, this is the boot to go for. That spring back is phenomenal. Is it too far to go and say that this is the future of outsoles? Because it might be. Like, if Adidas take this pattern, this idea, the way that they seem to have designed and developed this, not just for speed boots, there's so much tech in here that can be applied to different boots, and they apply it to new boots, maybe a new Nemesis or something like that. Oh, this is so good. If you want traction, if you want to feel aggressive and springy off your toes, there is no better boot than this. Have I made a big enough point about how good the outsole is on this boot? I love it. So I'll calm down a little bit. And something else that the Adizero was known for was being super lightweight. It was pretty much one of the lightest weight boots on the market at all times, only really getting competition from the Puma Evo Speed line. The Mercurial was always that little bit heavier. And we've fallen back into old patterns here. So if I pop this on the scales, this one's going to come in. It is a bit used, which does affect the weight slightly, but it's going to come in at 189 grams. Now this is I don't know whether to call it a promo pair or something like that. There's no size tag in this, but I am very confident through measuring it that it's about a size UK 7.5. So 189 grams at a UK 7.5, which is lighter than what you're gonna get from the Mercurials. So if I pop the Vapor on there, that one's coming in at 195 grams, so there's not a huge amount of difference there, and it's definitely heavier than what you get from the Puma Ultra, which is the lightest speed boot on the market, 160 grams. So if you want the lightest boot, this isn't it, it's the Puma Ultra. But even though the difference is fairly minimal between these two, the way that this is built, the way that that barefoot touch is so raw, and the way that the outsole just is built for raw, aggressive, straight line speed, it actually feels lighter on feet than the Mercurial does. It gives you almost a placebo effect of lightness, but there is a noticeable difference between this and the Ultra, but I wouldn't be worried at all. The weight is great, especially if you're looking for a speed boot in 2020. Buy it. Value for money. These come in at £180, 200 euros, which is basically the same price as you're going to pay for a Puma Ultra, which I've already described as really good value for money in this day and age in this market. So to get the 0.1 model, which I think feels very, very premium, and unlike what I said about the Predator, still feels like a top-end, high-end boot option, not a takedown. So we will compare it to the Plus when the Plus comes into the channel and see if there is a huge difference. But with the outsole that you get, that same outsole as the Plus level model, I think the upper, despite being different from the Plus, still feels premium enough. This central tongue section is so premium. I don't have any issues with some of the slightly less premium feeling elements at this particular price point. Is it expensive? Yes. Is it too expensive? You can always argue that yes with a brand new premium top end boot. But honestly, for what you might pay to get a Mercurial, especially something like a Superfly or even the Plus level model of this could turn out to be a really great value for money option. Fit and comfort. I'm going to start with the question that I will undoubtedly get asked the most. Can you wear this boot if you've got wide feet? And my answer is simply, I don't recommend it. This is quite a narrow fitting boot. And then the way that the material wraps around your foot, it wraps very closely. It's almost a claustrophobic type fit, one of those really tight Mercurial or F50 fits. It follows every contour of your foot, which is not a bad thing, because I think that's exactly what this boot needs to do to achieve what it's going for. And unfortunately, if you do have a wider foot, I think this could just be one to avoid. In terms of sizing, I have gone down half a size here. So instead of my regular UK 8, I have a UK 7.5, which is the same size that I wear in the brand new Predator line, both Plus and 0.1, if you want any reference. I've gone down there because basically the length is pretty much perfect, and because of the style of boot, I do want these to fit as close as I possibly can get them. So my advice to you is down half a size if you want to get as closer to the ball, as tight wrap feeling as you can. It's still perfectly comfortable. If you're really worried about that, you can probably get away with going up that half size or getting what I would call your regular size. When I saw the original images of this boot, I was delighted to see that in the heel, you still got these two big heel pads, because they give phenomenal heel lockdown, or they did in the X19 range. There's no little grip dots on it this time, and the material is different. It's definitely softer, and I think that's maybe slightly to the detriment of the heel lockdown. I don't think it's quite as good as what you got from those previous models, and it does push your heel slightly off the back of the boot, which can be a strange sensation to start with and took me a little bit of getting used to. It was almost like a shallow heel lockdown feeling, but I got over it fairly quickly. Similarly, this upward curve to the boot that really represents that sprinter spike and pushes you onto your toes. It's a strange sensation when I first got the boots on, but you get used to it very quickly, and that particularly is a sensation I enjoy. The heel I don't have any complaints about, but I do think the lockdown was a little better on the previous generation. In terms of comfort, don't expect a super wide, super comfortable boot here. It's not what it's designed for, and it's not super comfortable, but you know what? It's not uncomfortable either. I only have one complaint, and it goes back to that heel area. Towards the base of my Achilles here, I get a rubbing sensation on both feet. Now, we have to consider, of course, that this is a very tight boot, and I seem to have gone down half a size in it, so that might be an element that's added to it, but that's definitely gonna need some break-in time and some time for me to get used to it. Is definitely what I would describe as a hot spot over the first few hours of wear. You do get that really nice synthetic suede in the heel, which follows through and is even nicer on the insole, which is a very flimsy, lightweight insole, but that combined with grip socks, combined with the tight fit, means my foot is going nowhere. So I don't feel like this heel pressure or this heel hotspot has anything to do with my feet moving around inside the boot. It's just a design thing and something that my foot doesn't particularly get along with in this boot. So not something that you should be massively concerned about, but definitely something that I'm aware of, so I feel like I should make you aware of it. A ton of F50 Adizero vibes here. Adidas going back in time, using modern tech and bringing us exactly what we've been asking for, and there's very little to complain about here. It's not a perfect football boot, but it offers something different to what we get from the Mercurial or the Puma Ultra line, and I absolutely love that. And I think maybe given some more time, even though I think it's not as perfect as the Mercurial, not saying the Mercurial's perfect, but it's not as perfect, this might actually become my favored speed boot to wear. That's how good I think some of these elements actually are. Let me know what you think of the X Ghosted 0.1. Are you out to cop a pair? If you are, I'm going to leave a link down in the top comment where you can pick these up from a retailer. Remember to like the video, get subscribed to the channel if you want to see my Plus review. I've also got these coming in AG if you want to see if the AG pattern is worth buying, because it doesn't have that Carbitex insert. But that is all from Boot Wizard here today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a good one, and I'll see you soon.